Hi, this video is about constructors in Java. What is a constructor? A constructor in Java is a special method used to initialize object, and it gets called every time an object of the class is going to be created. And since it is a special method, this method has to qualify certain rules to become a constructor. So the first rule is a constructor and the class name must be identical. You cannot define an explicit value on a constructor. A constructor cannot be of the type static, synchronized, abstract, or final. And that is the three rules to be to qualify as a constructor method. And also it can have type modifiers such as private or public or protected. Also, when I say private constructor, it also has a special scope in the design class in the class singleton class design pattern, and in usage in the internal constructor chaining. What are the types of constructors in Java? So there is something called a default constructor and there is called parameterized constructor. But before I go on explaining about the types, let's see the, the code view of constructor. So I have a class, and so from the three rules that we have, the first rule is it has to be same name as class name. So this is going to be my constructor. It's a method, so have the open and the closing braces. It can be of any modifier, so let's go with public. So this is your constructor. Let's say print out constructor. Let's say that I'll create an object. So like it is said, it is getting called when an object is getting created. So this is how you create an object. So you call the constructor. So since it's a method, so this gets initialized very beginning of your object is going to be created. So say if I want to create an object, so put test a equals to. So let's run this. So this is a constructor. So it's like any other method. It is a method. Now let's say I have void and test a. So if you look at it, this method name is also as same as that of the class, but it is a method and not a constructor method because it has a return type. Let's put this thing. It's a method. So in order to call this method, you have to use the object variable, so which is a dot test a. Also, if you just you cannot access this method with new operator, whereas for constructor you need to use a new operator and call the method name. That's how it gets called during the object creation. So like I'm going to exclude this thing to avoid confusion. It's just to say that if the moment you have a return type that qualifies into a method and not a constructor. So let's remove this and remove this as well. So this is going to be your non-parameterized constructor. And if you remove this public, let's just go with the default constructor. I mean, when I say default constructor, it has a default modifier. And let's put some arguments in it in a. The moment you have defined the constructor to take an argument, you should also pass it in the you have to initialize it during your object creation. So pass 10 here, constructor plus a. So you run that. This is going to become your parameterized constructor. If it doesn't carry any parameter in it, that's going to be your default constructor. And I mean, in default, the sense it is a non-parameterized constructor, and when you pass a parameter, it is a parameterized constructor. These are the two things that we can that will come to your that should be included in the constructor, and also what is a default constructor. So now this is something that you have written, so that's why you call it as a explicit constructor. You have written it, but if you don't write this code, say that I'm going to have a method called void print, and I'm using system.out.println and print hi. I have e dot print. So if you look at this example, I have type of so I have a class test A, and I have my reference variable A, and I'm creating an object. So so from the definition, constructor gets called during the object creation. So the moment I'm assigning, obviously I'm creating an object, so I am calling a constructor which is test A. But if you look at the code, I have not defined it anywhere. So that part of code which you cannot see, but it is still getting called, is going to be your default constructor. So what a default constructor is, the constructor that is by default given by the JVM to your program. And when you're starting to define your own constructor, that becomes your explicit constructor which you are writing. So let's execute this program. So it prints this method, which is print method using the constructor. So that is about types of Java constructor and default constructor and parameterized constructor. The next topic is copy constructor. A copy constructor is a special type of constructor that creates an object using another object of same class. It returns a duplicate copy of existing object of the class. So why copy constructor is very much useful and very much popular is it will allow you to change the fields that are declared as final. Um, and also there is one more advantage. There is no need of typecasting. So let's see what a copy constructor is. Mm, So, so you have a class called test A. I'm going to remove this piece of code and this. So let's say test A has a constructor, and I'm going to use parameterized constructor test, let's say int age and string name. You also need a variable called age and string name. So I'm going to assign this variable and this variable values during the runtime. So let's say this dot age equals to the value I'm going to get during the runtime, and this dot name goes to the value I'm going to get on the runtime. So I have test A variable new test A and you pass 20 and a. So now you have your parameterized constructor and you're going to pass this value here. And let's say we have system dot println and you print age and name. Since I wanted to print the value that is passed away during the runtime, so that is why I'm using system.out print line everywhere. So this is going to be the constructor, and this is your normal default your parameterized constructor. So what does mean by copy constructor is, so now I have the constructor test A. This is going to take test A as a parameter, which is it is going to take the type class as it is taking a constructor as the parameter inside it. And let's see, give it a value. So I'm again going to reinitialize the class variables using the copy constructors value dot h and as dot name. If you look at this code, I have used the this keyword, and this keyword will generally is an equivalent of this variable. The variable A, that is the object reference variable, right? Equivalent of this object reference variable is this keyword here, which will which can access your current class object. So basically what I'm doing, I'm trying to reassign this age and a name, a value using constructor. So this is going to be a parameterized constructor. And so I'm creating a copy constructor, which is like copy constructor syntax is going to be the constructor and taking constructor and taking constructor as a type inside as a parameter. And then I'm trying to reassign these values using the variable of the constructor, and I'm going to substitute not substitute, like I'm going to pass the values to this constructor, taking the values from this constructor. So let's see. So now test B equals to new test A and pass A inside it. You don't have to pass anything else. So the A is going to carry these values, and that is going to be accessed here by as dot age and as dot name. If you print it, the same values are going to be printed twice, and that is copy constructor. It's more simple when it is when it's written and program practiced, I would say. The next topic is constructor chaining. Constructor chaining is a process of calling one constructor from another constructor with respect to current object. This is called a same class constructor, where super is called uh, used to call superclass constructor. Okay. So there are two ways to achieve it, just this keyword and the super keyword. So what is constructor chaining? Basically, if you will be looking at it, this is going to be your copy constructor. Now, I can also call this as like constructor chaining because I'm calling one constructor, this constructor. So this is the constructor. This constructor is calling this constructor. So this concept can also be this code can also be reused for the concept called constructor chaining. And also for constructor chaining, you need the keyword called this. Without this, you cannot be using constructor chaining. Um, I'll go with a simple example. And let's say I have constructor called test day. In this, I'm planning to pass 5. So let's say I have a constructor that is going to take a parameter and in this I'm going to pass 5, 10. Thirdly, and this I'm going to pass out.println x plus y. When I'm going to call the when I'm going to reuse the method within this same class, so in that time I'll be using this keyword. So this keyword, the equivalent of the object reference variable, and I'm passing a 5 for this constructor, which is going to look for the similar method, which is this one. So here it is going to pass a 5, and when pi is 5 is passed inside this method, it is going to call this one. And here, if you look at it, this method signature is same as of this one. So at the end, it is going to print this. So how will I actually initialize that thing? Say. So all I'm going to do is just to create a constructor. S- Let's print this. It's going to print 15. When I'm creating the constructor test A, this method is, is calling the test A constructor that is present here, and this will in turn call parameterize constructor, the second one, and this will call the third one. So this is going to be so to do chaining, internal chaining, you will be using this keyword, this keyword. When I say this keyword, this is the keyword. In now, let's say that I am going to have a class called test parent, and and the test parent is going to have a constructor in it, and let's say the constructor has hello world. Now extends test parent, So now if I wanted to call test parent, by default, if I'm going to run this program, it is going to call the test parent. So if you look at this, this is going to be your parent class, and inside the parent class, you have a constructor. By default, this is going to be called. In case if you wanted to say that I'm going to pass, suppose if I wanted to call it explicitly somewhere else, I can put here also. And this should be the first statement that I'm going to call. Okay, this is giving a violation. So let's remove it here. We can call it here because the method should be, and this is breaking that. What is the error? So I have to call this. Now let's see if I'm going to pass 5 here, and let's say it needs an argument. Let's check if it is going to call this one or the other one. Remove this. Remove this. I think here you pass super of A. Run this. Prints your parent method. So basically what I'm trying to say is, so I have my parent class and the parent class has a method in it, and I am trying to call that method, constructed method in the child class, and to achieve that I'm going to use a super keyword. This was the equivalent of using this keyword in the within the same class, and so that is it then. Thank you.